I'd like to call the Governing Board for Liberty Elementary School District Governing Board meeting to order on Monday, March 13th, 2023. The time is 5:30. We're here at the Jerry Rovey facility. All 5 board members are present. Board Member Parks, Aguirre, yep, everybody's there, sorry. Board Member Bixler, Board Member Kenyon, and myself, Michael Todd. First item of agenda will be item 1.1, the approved regular agenda.
Mr. President, I make a motion to approve the regular agenda consistent with board policy BEDB and temporarily suspend the governing board policy with which this agenda may be inconsistent.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. Call your name, please specify your vote. Board Member Parks.
Aye.
Board Member Aguirre.
Yes.
Board Member Bixler.
Aye.
Board Member Kenyon.
Aye.
I'm also an aye. We will show that was approved 5-0. Next on the agenda is 1.2, Pledge of Allegiance. I believe next on our rotation is Mr. Parks, if you can lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next item on the agenda will be administrative reports. First one will be 2.1, Trimester 2, Data and Ed Services Update by Ms. Erica Daniels.
Hi, good evening, Mr. President and Governing Board. It is my pleasure to share with you our Trimester 2 data for math and ELA. I am super excited to highlight our student achievement and all the teachers' hard work. We are starting with our ELA data, and I just wanted to remind you of the national trend in ELA. ELA did not take a significant hit nationally compared to mathematics. It is our goal for ELA to increase the students performing above mastery from 25% to 40% in reading for information on the ELA segment of the AASA. As I stated, it's our goal to improve informational text comprehension. Our teachers participated in 3 two-hour professional development trainings focused specifically on reading informational text. Our first training was main idea or central message, depending on the grade level. The second training was opinion or argumentative comprehension. And the third training was comparing 2 or more informational texts. This data table is by grade level. Overall, the district had a 10% increase from last year's Trimester 2 results to this year's Trimester 2 results. Some grade levels are quite impressive, like second grade at 21%, third grade at 10.9%, fourth grade at 17.9%, and eighth at 17.8%. This is outstanding growth. Although the decrease in sixth grade is not significant, we had some wonderings about sixth grade data, so we looked at another data source, Achieve 3000. Achieve 3000 showed us that sixth grade students have increased their Lexile level from 14.3% to 23.7%. However, only 23% of our sixth grade students are reading on grade level. This may be one of the root causes of the decline in ELA performance. However, our schools are digging deeper into their sixth grade data to determine other root causes and specific action steps for this grade level. This data set shows proficiency by site, averaging the 2nd through 8th grade scores on the Trimester 2 reading benchmark. As a district, you will see an overall growth of 7.94% compared to last year's Trimester 2 cite data. Notice Westar and LBA have outstanding growth overall, and none of our schools declined in student achievement. Again, fantastic results, fantastic results, which are evidence of data-driven instruction, lessons at the correct level of difficulty, targeting small group instruction, and effective collaborative teams and planning. Now we're circling back to our district goal. Remember, 40% of our district goal is for comprehending informational text. The first chart on the left is showing the category proficiency for reading for information by site on the trimester 2 ELA benchmark. The chart on the right is breaking down how our grade levels performed on informational text. We set a goal based on need. We intervened with professional development, and now we ask, did it work? I am happy to report we are on track to meeting our goal. Sites are setting specific action plans to encompass the following strategies to increase student achievement. So they're differentiating instruction utilizing Achieve 3000. Specifically, stretch text will take a child reading at their grade level, and then the next text, which is the same topic, will stretch them to grade level Lexile. They're targeting student action plans. They're bridging context clues instruction to days. They're increasing time and text with specific reading focus and feedback. And grade level PLCs are focusing on action steps aligned to small group instruction and whole group instruction. And 6th through 8th grade will still have more informational text comprehension PD. So now we're going to start with mathematics. Our district math goal is to increase the percentage of students scoring at or above mastery in numbers and operations, specifically fractions, from 16% to 30% on the Math AASA. Math had the most dismal declines in the state. No state or jurisdiction was left untouched. In mathematics, we also aligned our professional development learning sessions. Our teachers have participated in 7 out of 9 planned sessions so far this year. As you can see, our PD emphasis was much stronger in mathematics. Our original math plan has been monitored and adjusted based on teacher feedback, walkthrough observation, co-teaching sessions, and administration requests. A trend here with data comparing trimester 2 last year to trimester 2 this year shows most grade levels have maintained or increased in mathematics achievement. 6th, 7th, and 8th show statistically insignificant decreases, meaning they are maintaining. 3rd and 4th have significant increases in student achievement compared to last year. Again, this is not cohort data. This is last year's grade level students compared to this year's grade level students. However, we see a significant decrease in performance in our 5th graders. What do we know about our current 5th graders and students? These students missed foundational instruction in 2nd and 3rd grade due to the pandemic. This foundational instruction has had the greatest negative impact on the understanding of the fractions domain. 3rd grade is monumental in building this foundation. In digging deeper regarding 5th grade, we looked at another data source, Dreambox. We specifically focused on the standards proficiency data. Here, I want you to notice the green and the blue bars. Green represents grade level standards where students are showing proficiency. The blue bars represent where students are showing progress. Our schools are digging deeper into their 5th grade mathematics data to determine other root causes and specific action steps. Now let's take a look at site data in regards to mathematics. This data set shows proficiency by site, averaging the 3rd through 8th grade scores on the trimester 2 math benchmark. As a district, you will see the overall we maintained. LBA and Rainbow Valley showed significant growth from last year to this year. Westar showed growth, as well as Estrella maintained. Freedom and Liberty were significantly impacted by the 5th grade proficiency. As stated previously, 5th grade students were impacted the most by the pandemic. This is a big gap in knowledge that teachers are trying to fill. Now let's go back to our district goal, which was to increase student achievement in mathematics domain, numbers and operations, specifically fractions. Here you can see the site level percentage of proficiency for the number and operations domain. As a district, we are averaging 39% in this domain. On the right-hand side, the data is showing by grade level. Check out the proficiency in 3rd grade, which is an indicator that our foundational math skills are being taught to mastery. This is a huge celebration. Another celebration shows that we are trending in the right direction to meeting our goal. Teachers, keep it up. As you are aware, we are in the midst of a much-needed mathematics adoption. To ensure that teachers have access to an aligned resource that provides support for less planning and preparation. Sites are setting specific action plans to encompass the following strategies to increase student achievement. 2 scheduled PD sessions to move students' learning forward. They're strategically assigning Dreambox standards to 1, teach grade level standards, but also fill the gaps. They're targeting student action plans in grade level PLCs. Small group targeted instruction to support and extend learning, and workstations focused on building procedural fluency. Questions?
Members, any questions?
Yeah, I've got a quick question.
Yeah.
We just, we're seeing the new math programs come through, and the new committees are approving the new math instructional materials. Are they? I assume they're all lined up with what you're learning through the data and how, in as far as being implemented into these programs.
Yeah, they are research-based. They are aligned to our math block segments. And right now we're in the first pilot.
Perfect. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, thank you. Lots of information there, and it really is specific. I think gives us some pretty good direction on what to do and where to look as far as improving student performance in math in the LA. So that was, those numbers are not only nice to see that we have them, but doing pretty good too. I agree. The trend seems to be upward. I do have a couple questions about 6th grade ELA and 5th grade math. I assume you looked at all other outside factors that may have impacted the student performance, such as I know that we've had some growth and our numbers are small enough that a moderately large number of students adding to that grade level from outside might make a difference. Did we look at that at all?
As far as the new students coming in?
Mm-hmm.
No, we did not break down the data as far as new students coming in, but we did look at where they are in their performance. Plus, PLCs are really targeting fractions for mathematics and informational text for ELA. So the teachers are drilling down, they're constructing common formative assessments, and then they're responding as far as their whole group instruction or small group intervention.
Yeah, it did seem that those numbers, even if you look back at, for the sixth grader ELA, look at the second trimester performance as fifth graders, and you look at that as far as sixth grade, that was remarkably different. I mean, there's something happened there. Same thing with math. When you look at the fifth graders in fourth grade,
The vertical.
that really was a drop. Gosh, it'd be nice to nail down what happened there, because it seems real specific to those two grade levels. All the rest seem to be hanging in there pretty good.
In mathematics, though, the foundational skills will really catch up in fifth grade if they're not strong conceptually in fractions. You're going to see a big difference.
Is part of that developmental? Are they just not capable of that abstract thinking at this point? Some of
No,
them?
I believe they are capable. I believe they were impacted by not having that solid foundation in especially third grade.
Yeah, I know fourth grade has a lot of new stuff too. So, all right, thank you. Yeah, that was good information. Thank you.
I want to thank you. That was a wonderful presentation. I just quick question, and I'm so happy to see all the positive numbers on here. And yes, like you said, thank you teachers for doing the hard work and teaching our children. It's good to see this direction. With the new, the pilot, the math program pilot, what classes or campuses are teaching that right now?
We have teachers on all campuses teaching at K-8.
Between K,
Resource,
okay, all over.
everyone's involved.
Okay,
Tasha, how many members? Do you remember?
57.
nice. Okay, gives us a good idea. Thank you.
Board Member Aguirre, did you have any questions?
Yeah. So if we're seeing this compound from third grade is where it started due to the pandemic, and here we are at fifth grade, are we predicting it's going to continue to compound as this particular grade level moves forward?
I'm hoping, not hoping, I know with teacher intervention and backfilling those skills through Dreambox or small group instruction that we are going to catch up. They're also remediating some of those skills in their workstations too that are critical for them to move forward with grade level standards.
So we had a summer program that we did, if I remember correctly, for 2 years.
Yes, we have one this year as well.
So what I wonder is administration recommending that fifth graders attend summer school?
It was our goal to move up in grade levels. We're just struggling to get teachers to teach during the summer.
Uh-huh.
Right now it's K-3. If we get more teachers on board, we can expand that. Absolutely.
Okay, so there's no way to target specifically fifth graders, because what it seems like is that it seems as though the younger grades are doing fine at this point, but it seems that this compound issue that we're having, that it seems that we need to target this before we go any further, because it's only going to get worse, as you just described.
I do think it's an option for summer school to be more targeted, particularly to fifth grade math. And that's something that we can put out in our all staff news and try to get more teachers involved in supporting our fifth grade students for this summer. So we can bring that back to our teachers as a targeted intervention.
Absolutely. It was actually our intent.
Because I just wonder if maybe there needs to be a really hard push on that particular grade level. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. President, could I just ask
Absolutely.
one follow-up question that Mark's question did spur into me? Because the third grade seems to be the pivotal time where that gap was created, have we explored having third grade teachers talk to those fifth grade kids?
We could have third grade teachers instruct fifth grade students. Absolutely. We just need to get enough third grade teachers.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
I don't really have any questions that weren't already asked, so I appreciate all that, and I always appreciate your presentation. I remember, I think it was about a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, we talked about some numbers, and again, I think Board Member Bixler kind of brought this back to light. We obviously see a lot of students coming into our district mid-year, mid-career of education. They come in third grade. We haven't had them. We have no control over where they were at when they come in, and this district definitely hits the ground running. Testing happens. I guess I remember asking this question once upon a time, and I think I'd bring it up again. Is there a way that we can do an entry test and really kind of dissect that number for students who have been with us all the way through versus a student who's only been with us for a couple months or maybe 1 year to see where they're at? Because again, we have no control. If somebody's missing that, if we're hitting all the foundational marks moving forward, the pandemic hopefully is over, but another student is not getting that foundational because they're coming in from somewhere else, that's ultimately seems like it could be dragging our numbers down unfairly to us because we inherited a student. We're great to have them, but is there a way that we can do some sort of an entry test to see where they're really at?
We have a pre-assessment every year for all students in the grade level. So we already do an entry-level exam, which is a pre-assessment of the cumulative standards for that grade level. So that does give our teachers a pretty good idea of where the students are. And although we have students who transfer in from other districts or other schools, we do also receive their state assessment scores. So even though they may be new to us, we can gain that additional data of the students that are new. I think what I hear you wondering is, what is the comparison of continued students in the district compared to new students in the district? And I don't think we have represented that in this presentation, but that is something we can do as a governing board update, working with Dr. Sloat to find out, for students that continue in our district, we would hope that their scores are much better. And then for new students, what is it comparatively? Are they starting much lower? Is there a big discrepancy gap? We can run that report.
Yeah, that would be great, just because I think we see this, and without having the breakdown, if we have a 50% influx of new students into grade 5 that aren't prepared, that could be pulling our numbers down more than those students who were here during those pandemic years where I think we did all we could. I know our teachers certainly did. It was a tough time, but to be able to look at that and not just take a blanket number of what we may have inherited.
And I'll just remind the board, all children are our children, right? So once they're with us, they're our students, and they do impact our scores. And so we want to intervene with children that are significantly behind, and we want to accelerate children that need acceleration. So I also don't want us to say, kind of the us and them. All kids are our kids that are here with us at Liberty.
And I appreciate that you said that, because that's what public education is all about.
Members, any more questions? Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Next on our agenda is item 2.2, the attendance enrollment report and schools newsletters.
I think that's me. Governing board president and members of the governing board, you will see a report which gives an update on our school newsletters for the month of March, as well as attendance and enrollment.
Members, any questions? Hearing none, we'll move to our governing board report, item 3.1, governing board updates. We'll start down at the end. Mr. Parks.
I got the opportunity to go to the Festival of the Arts, which I think it's third year running, and it's always amazing to me to watch all the kids from all the district, teachers, parents, and participate. I mean, the place was packed. It was incredible to watch. The talent across our school district is amazing. I just want to say thank you to all the teachers and parents who participated.
Thank you, Board Member McGuire. Board Member Bixler.
Yes, another busy time. Started off with a visit to Rainbow Valley and got a tour. I really want to thank the tour guides that we had there, Adam, Brady, Raylan, and Maya. Great tour guides. We spent a lot of time talking with the kids as we went from class to class. Very, very exciting. What I pulled away from that was lot of good instruction going on in the classrooms, a lot of student engagement, really a lot of good stuff going on in Rainbow Valley. And I was not surprised that the trimester report on the performance at Rainbow Valley, what I saw on the campus verifies what I saw as far as the numbers on the trimester testing. But the thing that really, really stood out to me was how our guides and the other students in the classrooms that we saw were so proud of what they had done. The pride in what their successes and accomplishments from displays in the classrooms to things hanging on the wall and in the hallways. The students really took pride in what they had done. They were really, really happy with what they were doing there at Rainbow Valley. And boy, you can't ask much more than that. From there, I went on to West Star and got the tour there. That was great. Mr. Bogart was a wonderful tour guide, took us everywhere, saw all kinds of stuff. Was really excited about seeing the vertical alignment of our math program. Math for me has always been kind of interesting because the vocabulary always changes. It's always the same things you do with math. That's the nice thing about math. It's always about the same kind of concepts and so on, but the vocabulary changes a lot. And so to see the vertical alignment of the vocabulary in math was really exciting to see at West Star. But again, the thing that stood out to me the most was the feeling of family that I got being on West Star's campus. Everywhere we went, the relationship between the teachers and the administration was just so very, very positive, and that spilled over to the kids. Very, very positive campus. It's a family there, and that was really good to see. And I ended up, as some of the other board members did, at the Festival for the Arts. Estrella Mountain, thank you so much for being the host of this. Boy, what a magnificent effort they made to have all of the district art out there and displayed and giving every child an opportunity to have their work out there. Monumental, lots to see when we went there. For me, the thing that I liked best was the 3D art that we saw from Estrella Mountain in their program over there. They do this really cool thing with recycled plastic and color, and they mold it into this weird looking thing, and it was really cool to see. The one thing I didn't like about it was it's the kind of art that you want to touch. It's like looking at a fine piece of marble. You want to touch it because it just looks like something you want to put your fingers on, and you can't do that with that. But it was, so good to see, and very, very exciting, the art that was done in 3D. Always fun to see that at the Festival of the Art. My personal favorites, I was able to listen into a conversation a family was having about a kinder artwork. It was very, very simple, but it was so well done. And to think it was a kindergarten student that actually had done it, and this family had remarked about it. It wasn't their child. They just noticed the art and went, boy, that's really good. And they were absolutely right. For a kinder, it was amazing. I'd hang it up in my house. The other thing, though, my personal favorite was the Eye of the Lizard. I don't know who did that. I did discover that I seemed to like 7th grade art. I don't know why, but everything I liked was from 7th grade. But the Eye of the Lizard that was done by a 7th grade student was spectacular. So congratulations on the Festival of the Arts. Well done by everybody.
I was also able to go to the Festival of the Arts, and that was, like what was stated, it was wonderful. There was a full house. There was lots and lots of people, staff, kids running everywhere, family members running everywhere. It was just a wonderful performance. Some great singing, some great short dramas that were done. Liberty's color guard out there doing their twirl with the flags, and then all the art on display. It was a really, really nice, well put together whole festival. I believe even the high school came over and joined in the auditorium, and they had their band out there, and just everybody partook, and it was really, really well put together. So thank you for everybody who was involved in that. And then the following night, I got to go to Peter Piper Pizza, support Liberty Elementary. They had their raise some dough, I guess, what you would call it. Making some money for, and just a good get together of community, family, staff, and got to spend some good time there, watch the kids play games and drain my wallet and that kind of stuff. But it's always fun, so had a good week.
Well, it's hard to top that. I too got to enjoy the tour at Rainbow Valley. Much like Board Member Bixler said, the students were so proud of the work they're done. I had proposed several months ago that we look at having students kind of lead the tours, and I'm glad to see that the district has adopted that, because it really is good to see it from the student point of view versus just a teacher administrator view. And I don't mean to diminish those views, but to see the students and to hear what's important to them and what they're proud of is spectacular. So our guides were great. Same thing over at West Star, another great tour over there, and then the Festival of the Arts. Unfortunately, I was there for all of it, but I was looking through a drone screen through a lot. Ms. Balsam asked me if I'd fly the drone. The attendance at that, really the only way to show that magnitude is from a few hundred feet in the air. And if you try to do it from ground level, all you see are a wall of people. So it was pretty impressive, and I got kind of a bird's eye view that others didn't see initially. But boy, the numbers of attendees were even larger when you looked at it from the air. So it was a great time. The music performances, much to Board Member Bixler's point, the 3-day art was incredible. So it was a great time, and look forward to next year's as well. All right. If there's nothing else, we'll move to the call to the public. We have one request tonight from Elwood Kunstler. Mr. Kunstler, you'll have 3 minutes. Your timer will be on the screen. And we ask that you wrap it up at 3 minutes.
Thank you. Ladies, board president and board members, I'm here to finish a statement that I started a couple of weeks ago and kind of got shot down by a bunch of woke teachers that didn't seem that they wanted to hear anybody else's opinion. Virtually, I surely hope that those teachers don't participate in class that way, or our children are going to be learning some horrible lessons. I visited Legislation District 2325, ECRC, Pebble Creek Republican Club, and a couple of other clubs in the last 2 weeks. I showed the film of Mr. Aguirre's attack on the teachers and the shouting, and it was, I wanted to make sure that all the parents saw what was going on, and they did. And I want board members Mark Aguirre, Chris, and board president Mr. Todd to know that these parents are all in 100% full support. They like the way that this new board leadership is working, and they want it to continue. And then last but not least, I'm going to respond to 2 quick statements that were made. One by Mr. Aguirre, that all of the contracts are open to the public. You are correct, sir, they are, but none of the negotiations were. If the teachers would have sat on their butts and just waited at the last board meeting instead of lying, all right, about Mr. Bogart's contract, which was not being held up on purpose, it was being checked by legal because it's a retire to rehire contract, the same thing that Lori Schuff did, okay? And that one was done in secret also, okay? This contract, that's the information that the parents should be getting. Not just the release of the contract when it's done, okay? But what's in the contract and how it was done. I am thoroughly glad that Mr. Bogart was cleaned and that his contract was renewed. I think he's a good principal, and I think he's a good man. I just wish that the teachers had the common sense to just wait until after the board does its study and then see what the board has to say before the accusing. Last but not least, Mr. Bixler made a comment about the 2 speakers. They are part of LGBTQ. They do not work for LGBTQ. They do work for Gays Against Groomers. They are paid staff members, but they are not paid to speak. They came here of their own free will and spoke on their own free time. Being a staff member doesn't mean that you get paid to speak. Thank you all for your time. I appreciate it. God bless.
Thank you. Board members, any comments? Hearing none, we'll move to our consent agenda. Take a motion to approve.
Mr. President, I make a motion to approve the governing board consent agenda.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. When I call your name, please specify your vote. Board Member Parks,
Aye.
Board Member Aguirre,
Yes.
Board Member Bixler,
Aye.
Board Member Kenyon.
Aye.
I'm also an aye. We will show that approved 5 yes, 0 no. Now move to our general business section. First item on the agenda is 6.1, a possible action to convene an executive session pursuant to ARS 38431.03A1 for discussion or consideration of additional responsibilities and compensation for district-level administrators Natasha Camp, Jason Nuttall, and Elizabeth Strickler. I knew that as soon as I said it. Had Erica's presentation so in mind. Pending the hiring of an interim superintendent. Also, 6.2 will be another executive session, so we can take motions for both of those. I'll read that one once we clear 6.1.
Mr. President, I make a motion to convene an executive session pursuant to ARS 38-431.01A1 for discussion or consideration of additional responsibilities and compensation for district-level administrators, Natasha Camp, Jason Nuttall, and Beth Strickler, pending the hiring of an interim superintendent.
Point of order. I think we misspoke on the ARS number. You want to try that again?
I think you said 0.01, 0.03.
Oh, I will try that again. I recommend that we convene an executive session pursuant to ARS 38-431.03. It's an A1 session for discussion or consideration of additional responsibilities and compensation for district-level administrators, Natasha Camp, Jason Nuttall, Elizabeth Strickler, pending the hiring of an interim superintendent.
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second for executive session. I call your name, please specify your vote. Board Member Parks?
I had a question.
Yes, sir.
Was the administrators given the opportunity to have this in a public session?
Yes, they were, and they all did not want it in public.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And for the record, they were all properly noticed as well.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to convene to executive session. I call your name, please specify your vote. Board Member Parks?
Aye.
Board Member Aguirre?
Yes.
Board Member Bixler?
Aye.
Board Member Kenyon?
Aye.
I'm also an aye. We will show that that approved 5-0. And we'll go to executive session after we talk about 6.2. 6.2 is possible action to convene an executive session pursuant to ARS 38-431.03A3 for discussion or consultation for legal advice with the governing board's attorney regarding construction manager at risk for RFQ 23-3-23.
Mr. President, I make a motion to convene executive session for 6.2. A possible action to convene an executive session pursuant to ARS 38-431.03A3 for discussion or consultation for legal advice with governing board's attorney regarding construction manager risk, RFQ 23-3-23.
A second.
You have a motion and a second to convene a second executive session for the construction manager at risk. I call your name, please specify your vote. Board Member Parks?
Aye.
Board Member Aguirre?
Yes.
Board Member Bixler?
Aye.
Board Member Kenyon?
Aye.
I'm also an aye. We will show that that was approved 5 yes, 0 no's. And now we will move to executive session at 6:09 PM. Okay, the time is now 8:06. We'll show us back in general session. Next item on the agenda is 6.3, possible action regarding stipend agreements for district-level administrators, Camp, Nuttall, and Strickler.
Mr. President, I make a motion to, in recognition of the additional duties that the administrators have performed and may continue to perform pending the hiring of interim superintendent, I move to approve the stipend agreements as presenting to the governing board tonight for Natasha Camp, Jason Nuttall, and Elizabeth Strickler.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve stipend agreements for district-level administrators, Camp, Nuttall, and Strickler. When I call, is there any discussion?
I would like to just say something real quick. I am very thankful to Ms. Camp, Ms. Strickler, and Mr. Nuttall that they're willing to step up and help the district during this time. And the proposed amount that you came with, I think, went above and beyond that, and you'll see that reflected. So, thank you.
Any other conversation? Hearing none, I'll call for your vote. Board Member Parks?
Aye.
Board Member Aguirre?
Yes.
Board Member Bixler?
Aye.
Board Member Kenyon?
Aye.
I am also an aye. We will show that approved 5 yes, 0 no. Next will be item 6.4, possible direction to administration and/or legal counsel regarding RFQ 23-3-23 for Transportation Hub.
Mr. President, I move to direct the administration to revise RFQ 23-323 to provide the following order of evaluation criteria to include the following point values in subsection 4 of section 2, evaluation process and criteria. The experience of the firm, 350 points. Qualifications and experience of personnel assigned, 300 points. Method of approach, 200 points. Organizational and financial strength, 100 points. References and overall evaluation of the firm's perceived ability to provide services, 50 points.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. When I call your name, please specify your vote. Board Member Parks?
Aye.
Board Member Aguirre?
Yes.
Board Member Bixler?
Aye.
Board Member Kenyon?
Aye.
I'm also an aye. We will show that approved 5 yes, 0 no. I think there's a couple more motions for that section.
Mr. President, I move to direct the administration to revise RFQ 23-323 to include the following revision to the first sentence in paragraph A. Experience of firm which is located in section 2, evaluation and process, and criterion subsection 4, evaluation of criteria. A, experience of firm. The ability of the firm to demonstrate a level of competence in successfully completing similar CM at risk-based projects with Liberty Elementary School District and or other school districts as defined within the project scope section.
I'll second that.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Just a quick note here that I think it needs to be magnified a little bit of experience of individuals who've done work with the district. Right? If that's available, and if it's not, then it's or. Right? I think that's the true intent that the board's looking for.
Okay, any other discussion? Hearing none, I will call for the vote. Board Member Parks?
Aye.
Board Member Aguirre?
Yes.
Board Member Bixler?
Aye.
Board Member Kenyon?
Aye.
I'm also an aye. We will show that approved 5 yes, 0 no. We got 2 more.
I move to direct the administration to issue RFQ 23-323 with the revisions approved by the governing board tonight.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve, direct the administration to issue RFQ 23-323 with the revisions approved by the governing board tonight. When I call your name, or actually, is there any discussion? No discussion. When I call your name, please specify your vote. Board Member Parks?
Aye.
Board Member Aguirre?
Yes.
Board Member Bixler?
Aye.
Board Member Kenyon?
Aye.
I'm also an aye. We will show that approved 5 yes, 0 no.
Mr. President, I move to direct the administration to provide the board with 10 nominees, from which 7 will be selected to serve on the selection committee.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second to direct the administration to provide the board with 10 nominees, from which 7 will be selected to serve on the selection committee. Any discussion?
I think also, Mr. President, I think if I remember correctly, it's the board intention that we're gonna make sure that we follow required statute of who those firms would be that are required to be on there, of course, first and foremost. That we don't want to stray away from statute.
Correct, that's my understanding as well, and I think staff will be briefed on that as well. Any other discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. Board Member Parks.
Aye.
Board Member Bixler.
Aye.
Board Member Aguirre.
Yes.
Board Member Kenyon.
Aye.
I'm also an aye. We'll show that approved 5 yes, 0 no. We will now move on to item 6.5, presentation by GR Recruiting and related board discussion and possible action relating to the interim superintendent search process.
Good evening. I'm Tom Williams with GR Recruiting. I'd like to introduce our associate, Dr. Denton Samarelli, and Gary Ray, who's going to be assisting with the search. So I think we presented or gave you a copy of a proposed timeline for the search. I want you to glance through that because there are some dates that I want to point out that will be important to have a meeting to have approval. For example, the profile that we will develop, we'd like the board to finalize that on 3/23, and we'd like to have the board meet to review candidates on 5/2, and then we'd like to have interviews on the 9th, 10th, and 11th of May. So those are important dates, and we can fluctuate a little bit depending on your schedules, but we'd like to get that pretty firm. So that's something you need to look through. We also, the first item of business to identify and establish the profile will be to interview the board members. So this week, we would like to call each of the board members and interview you on the phone to get more information about the search and the candidate that you'd like us to help you select. So that will be for this interim position, the amount of information we gather to put a profile together. When the full search is done, a more complete stakeholder involvement will be recommended. There was a little confusion, I think, in terms of what the proposal was. We proposed doing both the interim and the regular search. And it was brought to our attention that you're only going to approve the interim part of that proposal. And so I guess I'm asking, is that correct?
Well, I think it's what the board actually did take.
They've already taken that action. Okay. Okay. Okay, so there was a little confusion on our part because we proposed doing both, and I guess you only approved the interim part. So,
Is it possible? Is it possible to do
well,
run with the superintendent search?
I believe so. Yes, that's what we proposed doing, the interim and then doing the full search.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's what, by the way, I know you met these folks here. I'm Gary Ray, I'm president of Berlin. I live in Fountain
Mr. Ray, just for our minutes, can you come to the microphone? Thank you.
Yeah. My wife says she can hear me all over the house. So anyway, I've been doing searches for 40 plus years, and I live in Fountain Hills, so I'm going to be on the team here. But the answer to your question, yes. It's not unusual for us to do the interim search and then at the same time, which we gave you a pretty good price on, as well as doing a permanent search that boards hires wants to do the interim, and then we go on and do the permanent search. And the reason why they do that, one, we get to know the board, we get to know the community, so we don't have to start over. So it just makes common sense, for us to do that. Plus, when you're recruiting candidates, they see you're doing one interim, but if you're not doing the other search, the permanent search, then they get kind of confused and saying something's going on here, so that's that's part of it. Recruiting superintendents candidates is a real challenge. I mean, I'm doing searches and all over the country, and there's a real shortage of candidates. So we want to expedite this interim search as much as we can, as from a quality standpoint. And so we're thinking that on this timeline, as we're out recruiting, we might get somebody that will start before July that might want to. And so, and we're thinking July 1, they'll start and then finish the year out. And then we'll be doing a permanent search starting that in the fall, with a lot of stakeholders. We're a firm that believes a lot of input, And, it's tough recruiting candidates. So we've got to get out there and find out what stakeholders are saying and how you feel about the district and build that, a permanent profile. It's just public education has been under fire, across the country. And so kind of lost our way on who our customers are, parents and kids. And so we've got to go out and listen to, our stakeholders. And but we think on the interim to hit the ground running, if we interview the board members, we'll have a pretty good idea that what that profile is going to be, and then we'll go out and recruit. The reason why I say we might get somebody a little bit earlier, because he may be available, and he might not be available later on, because someone may pick them up, so they may fit the profile. So our job is to get you the very best candidates that are available for this interim position. And that's what we're going to try to do. And whether they're close by or there's some other part of the state or outside the state, we're going to bring you the very best for that profile, so the district does not get moving backwards, because you want to move forward. And one of the things we're going to want to do, and I'm going to tell you one of the questions is what are your expectations of that interim? Because some places we go, they may say, we just want somebody to keep the ship afloat. Other places are going to say, no, we need these things done, and a good interim can get it done. So we need to know that. We're not just going to get somebody that's just going to float by, because your system can get set back. And so it's really important for us to go out there and know what your profile for the interim is going to be, and then we can move into the permanent, position for that.
Is it Dr. Ray?
No, it's Gary Ray.
Gary Ray.
Yes.
Can you tell me, as far as the the search that you do, how often does the interim end up being the permanent?
It does happen. It depends on how you advertise, the position. Right now, the pool will be somewhat shallow for someone that's going to do the interim and then want to move into the permanent one. Because if you just think about it, if you are trying to recruit an interim and then that person can be the candidate for the job, it does kind of deplete the pool a little bit, because people think it's an inside deal, so.
Like inside the building?
What's that?
Like inside the building deal?
No, well, inside meaning that if they're yeah, right, I got you. Yeah, but if, the interim sometimes can be hired as a permanent, and we're okay with that. But I'm saying that when the interim can be a candidate for the permanent job and it's out there, then it does kind of squashes your pool a little bit.
Right. Yeah. So it would actually, as far as I understand that a permanent would require, and I think you're right on the mark, a lot more community input. Essentially, the intern would be just kind of our input, and what you're saying is that the permanent would be more community members, more stakeholders involved, and thus it would take longer.
No, yeah, it's going to take a little longer. The best way of doing that is to start in around October. And I didn't bring a timeline for the permanent, but if you start about October, you got school started, you know, you got things going, and then parents and folks are more available in October. We get the stakeholder input done. That takes maybe a week or so, you know, and then what we're going to do is put up on your website, we'll put up a survey. A research-based survey that parents can go up, anybody can go up there and you know, fill out that survey in addition to some stakeholder meetings that we might have on top. Stakeholders like that because they get a chance to talk to the firm that's going to go out and recruit. You know, and we're pretty good listeners, you know, and the bottom line is somebody can be a great superintendent and down the road someplace, but might not fit here. So we're going to ask some pretty pointed questions of you as a board, and our survey asks some questions as well. And we'll provide you the results of that survey, which will help build a profile for us to recruit to that profile. And there'll be some additional questions in that survey that will help the new superintendent for he or she so when they have a sort of when they come in, they'll have some additional information, you know, about the district other than just the profile. So that's part of us being able to help the new superintendent to be successful, you know, to have that kind of information. But we got to know the profile in order to recruit to that profile. So that's a really big piece. So that would be probably in October. We'll recruit, you know, from October and then into the first week in January. A lot of candidates during the holidays, got Thanksgiving, you know, a lot of your good candidates are trying to get through the year. I mean, through the first part of the year. But we want to be ahead of the game, so we're interviewing in January. So that way, we've got the best candidate pool coming in January. You got somebody hired for the next, you know, to take over in June. Now, if they would be available, you could obviously hire them, but more than likely they're under a contract, so they're not going to be. They're going to want to finish the school year out, and I'm not sure you would ever want to hire somebody that's going to just leave their school district hanging and then, you know, come here. So you wouldn't want that. So
When we went through
that's
this,
how it works.
when we went through this before, because I was looking at your timeline, and for the interim, and it lined up with how we chose the previous superintendent. That it took approximately 1 week longer for a permanent superintendent, and what I'm seeing is the only thing that we're lacking in this one was the community input, and that took a week because I was at every one of those meetings.
Yeah.
Of getting the community input of what the priorities were for the community. So that's why I was wondering, when I'm looking at your timeline, if we extended that possibly a week or even 2 weeks, theoretically, we could possibly have a permanent superintendent in place if that's so chose what the board wanted to do.
Yeah, and that's possible. I mean, I've got 2 searches and 2 large urban districts are just starting. I mean, they're just doing their profile for this year, for next year. But it was under our understanding that you were wanting to do an interim, you know, right now, and so I built 30 days to recruit. When I say I, the team, we built 30 days to recruit in there. We may not need. I'll tell you how we're going to do the recruiting on that interim. The deadline that we're putting on here in this calendar, we're going to, if as candidates come in, we're going to say maybe as position until it's filled. Meaning that I don't want to wait. If we get 2 or 3 really hot candidates that are available that will meet your, you know, your needs, then we're going to bring those people.
Okay.
We're going to bring those people. Or we could advertise until position is filled. And that's probably the better way of doing it. But from our working, we wanted to give you an idea of 30 days would be the maximum for us during that recruiting. 30 days also allows us to do a couple national organizations, the AASA, which is the American Association of School Administrators, they now do a 30-day online type advertising, and so does Education Week.
Yeah, and that was the thing that took the longest, was there was a 30-day advertisement. But again, it was 30 days for a permanent, and then
Yeah.
that was the end of it, right?
You can't do anything less than 30 days.
Oh,
I mean,
right.
they kind of
And are you
box you.
gaining anything by going longer?
Yeah. So what I thought, if we did 30 days, that would give us some exposure, not only in Arizona, but, on a national basis to try to get an interim. But if we got some folks that were top notch, then we were going to try to get them to you as quickly as possible. And I know that these folks have been probably working their tails off trying to help out. But if we could get somebody that would start before July 1, that would carry over into next year, then that's our goal. If they can't start until July 1, then so be it. But it's the quality of the interim. The interim position is really, people take that lightly, but it's a really important position, because your school district is going to operate a year under that individual. So that's why we're going to ask you the question, what are your expectations of that interim? Because they're going to ask us that. And they ask that question, they ask the question, tell me about the board and what's the expectations of the job. And then they ask us third, the salary. And that's how it works. So I don't mean to go along, a long time here on this, but I just want you to know that this is our game plan. Those dates are kind of put there as placeholders. I mean, we can move them, a little bit here and there, but we're planning on trying to hit the ground running after tonight's meeting, so we can get into some advertisement, some professional publications. We have 60 some associates around the country, and we have some others in Arizona other than, the three of us. And so they're going to get the word out. We've already been talking to some folks, and of course some of them are saying, well, what's the salary going to be and what's the start date? Well, we can't tell them that yet, but I'm going to make a recommendation on salary. Well, I think it ought to be. And you'll have to tell me what it's going to be. So anyway, we're still going to plan on doing an interim search unless you tell us to do something different. The pool is going to be a little bit smaller, and right now, is if you're trying to do a permanent search, just because of the time of the year it is. Doesn't mean it can't be done successfully, but it'll be more of a challenge. You'll have a bigger pool of candidates, by waiting a little bit. It doesn't mean that it's going to be any better pool, but you'll just have a bigger pool. It's all about timing and knowing what your profile is.
So we do need the board to approve advertising.
Yeah.
If you want us to advertise, as Gary said, and we can give you a dollar range, and we
Yeah.
need to know the salary that we can expect. So those
Yeah.
are two things that we need to
Yeah.
act on.
Yeah. I mean, the advertisement is the two publications I said. The AASA, that's going to be $409. And the other one's is Education Week, is $400 and some dollars. So it's going to be slightly under $900 to do that. But I think it's worthwhile for you to do that. It gives you a broader pool of candidates. Do we need it? No, we can recruit, but I'm trying to get you, at this time of year, a bigger pool of candidates. And so if you authorize us to do that advertisement, it's something under $900 or don't exceed $900, something like that, we know we can be able to do. But it's important for us to do that. Yeah. And the salary, I'm going to just mention for you can think about salary. Your current, I always remind boards that you're always 1 year out when they're looking for salaries, because it's not what somebody's currently making. Your current superintendent is around 177,000 base. If the person was staying here, if you did a 5%, and believe me, all these folks out there, when you're recruiting, they know what the person's making. I mean, this, on a base salary. So the recruiting part of it for the interim, that the job's still going to be the job. So if you put 5% on that 177, it's going to be almost 9,000. So it'd be about 186,000. I think you ought to be around 180,000. Just because there's something magical about 180 versus 177. But I think if we put it's like $9.99 or $10, which one, whether you're a buyer or seller on the deal. But I think if you the way we advertise the salary, you can't use a range because everybody wants to be at the top of the range, and you can't say competitive because what does that mean? So, and you can't go from this range to this range because, like I said, everybody that wants to be at the top of the range, or if somebody falls outside the range, they're never going to apply. So I like to use a realistic base salary. And if we said the base salary of 180,000, and then say the final salary will be negotiated based upon the candidate's experience and meeting board expectation. Gives you some wiggle room there, but you got to have something on the hook to attract candidates. And this job is going to be worth 180,000. Anyway, it just is, and that may not may not be enough, but I think that's in the range. If we put the base salary as 180,000. And a lot of these interim superintendents are probably not going to be looking for a lot of other extra benefits because depending on their situation, if they're a retired superintendent, they probably don't need health insurance. They might not need some other things, but they always look at that base salary, and that's what you recruit from. So that would be my recommendation there. From a salary standpoint, just knowing where you're at and what you're going to do, and what if you were going to give a raise anyway. So that
So you had mentioned something about a retired superintendent being the interim superintendent. Would
Yeah,
they
it
have
could
to?
be.
Would they have to come on with a third party?
Would they what?
Would they have to come on with a third party?
No.
I'm sorry.
No.
Only if it's the same district. If I think you're referring to superintendents that retire and then get rehired by the same district.
That's only.
That wouldn't be the case.
That's just with the same district.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, and
So
yeah.
retired superintendent can quote unquote double dip then.
And that
Okay.
statute only applies even if they're out for a year. Then that doesn't apply anymore as well. So
Okay.
within the system, if they're out for a year or third-party contract.
Right.
So if you're mentioning, then that can happen as well.
It could be somebody from that was in Arizona that left Arizona, wants to come back to Arizona.
Okay.
I mean, you just don't know where the pool is. We're going to have, cast our net out as broad and as wide as we can, and there'll be some folks that will take a look at this job. They might not want it to be a permanent job. We may get some folks, to your point, Paul, that will look at it as, hey, I've retired out of Iowa. I'm only 55 years old. I got family here. So I'm going to come here and be a superintendent. And you would be able to benefit from that person's experience. So we just don't know where the candidates are going to come from. I mean, you just don't for this interim. And we may get some people that are going to take it on and say, hey, I'm going to try for the permanent job. But then you'll have to make that decision. And you may get them here and say, hey, after being here for 6 months, this is the person we want. That could happen.
Just a question. If we decide to go for a permanent superintendent, what is in your opinion, what would be our chances of having that permanent superintendent in place by the start of school next year?
If you went for the permanent,
Mm-hmm.
well, I think you could get some people there, that would take that permanent position. But I would recommend that you would take this interim, situation and maybe push it off and go for the permanent one, because if you're going to do that, to his point, but we don't have the stakeholders, see, and that's where you're going to miss out on the stakeholders. I think you can get somebody in place, but you're still going to have to expedite this search,
Yeah, I wouldn't want to eliminate the stakeholders from this process.
And I think that's going to eat up at least 2 to 3 weeks of your time, to do it right. If you're really going to put a survey up, you're going to invite people, to apply. I mean, not to apply, but to participate. You got to get your meetings, lined up, and then get the survey. Then we have to collect the information. Then we get it back to you. If you're going to do it right, you're going to eat up close to, 3 weeks to 4 weeks.
So you're saying it's possible but unlikely?
No, I'm saying it's possible to be able to do it. And the thing about it is, if you cast the net out there, you went ahead and did your stakeholders, and you went through the process. The worst case scenario would be you couldn't find the right candidate, but you might find the right candidate. You might find the right candidate where you have a couple choices, and then you've got the permanent person in there. Mm-hmm. But if you don't get the right person, what's the worst case scenario? You just go ahead and go with your full plan and having an interim. I mean, you can always go to the interim. If you go through the first part of the permanent search and you do your stakeholders and so forth. But it's going to take about 3 weeks to do that at a minimum, because you've got to get a notice out to people, and then you got to have somebody organize your, in-house, and you probably know who your stakeholders, and then you got to have a couple what I call you all come meetings, meaning anybody can come, to those, because some folks don't belong to certain organizations, and so they need to be involved, and I call them the voiceless. They need to be heard, out there. So to do all that, it's going to take about 3.5 weeks. Can it be built in the calendar? Can we do it? The answer is yes. Can we get some candidates? The answer is yes. I don't know what the quality is going to be, but you may have some. I did a big search a couple years ago. We did it in 45 days. When I say a couple of years ago, it's actually 12 years ago. He was still there. He's been there for 12 years, and we did that in 45 days in a very large district. He's doing a great job. But you just don't know until you cast the net out there. So we could do a permanent search. And we could do that and wait until, see what we've got. And I'm going to be, honest with you, as well as these gentlemen. If we don't see the quality there, we're going to tell you.
So I guess the question that I have,
hire somebody to hire somebody.
One question that I have that hasn't been put out there to you guys, because I hear what you're saying, so we have a bond that we have to make a decision on. So if we have an interim, like you're proposing, all the way through next year, well, now that's a year that we have to push that bond out, and that puts us over capacity at schools.
Are you thinking about 24 or all 23?
24.
24. Okay, so you're out making decisions.
So, and that's a lot of work. And an interim, to your point, forgive me for saying this, but an interim is not somebody who moves the district forward in a direction. I think they're more maintaining, right?
Well,
for the most part.
Yeah, it can be, but it can also be, as part of your profile, it could be someone who has experience of running bond issues. you know, and there are people that do that, that have done it. So they might be able to bring that, you know, that piece to the table if we knew when we were interviewing you, and I didn't know about the bond issue,
Right.
but by knowing that, when we're recruiting and looking at people, we have to say, do you have some experience in the area of being able to run a bond and know how to do it? You know, so we'd have to have that, you know, as we're recruiting people, we'd have to know that.
Okay.
You know, but, you know, I guess to answer your Mark and Paul, can we do a permanent search? You know, can we do it and probably get somebody on board by July 1? I think the answer is yes.
Well,
I
for
don't
me,
know
it'd
what to
be
put.
August, right?
What's that?
It'd be August, start of school.
July 1st is contract.
Contract.
Gotcha, understood.
Yeah, the contract is for July 1. And it's not like you're that far behind some of the other districts that we're doing. Those couple of districts that we're doing are large districts. I mean, they're huge, diverse districts, but they're just doing their stakeholders meetings next week and the week after. Now, and they're planning to have somebody on board in July 1.
Okay.
So can it be done? The answer is yes. Can it be done? But if we don't find the right candidates, then you just go to your interim.
Right.
Just go to your interim, and if we don't feel the pool is strong, we don't want you to hire. First place, we got a 2-year guarantee, so I don't want that to come back on me. And
Well, we do.
And I've only had to do that a couple of times in 40 years, so you're not going to be. It's not a challenge to you. So just want to make that clear.
Okay.
It's not a challenge, you know. But anyway, that's just we could go in and do that, and then see what kind of fish we pull out, you know. And
I think that's my biggest concern, and I do recognize it would be wonderful if we could just skip the interim and move to a permanent superintendent search. The problem is, like you said, you just don't know what you're going to get, and if you don't get what you're hoping for, now you're stuck for a longer period of time. And I don't think we have the luxury of that right now, with how stretched our administration is right now. You know, I've always been, let's just get somebody here, and thank you, Mark. I didn't even think about the bond coming up, and so that would be a great point to make sure that interim would have. But somebody here so that it could relieve some of the weight on our administration at this moment. The sooner we can get somebody in, the better. And I really don't want to skimp out on taking time, having that good community input, having everybody involved, and really dissecting and looking and having good big pool of candidates. And like you said, who knows what the quality would be, but at least it looks like you have a bigger pool if we can push that out to the appropriate time. Because the superintendent, I've been told the biggest decision that a board will make, right?
True.
And so I don't want to
hiring a CEO,
Below
that's,
that.
you know, for the organization.
So that puts it at, what, 4 months? July 1, right?
So I think that's how the math works. Yes. Yeah. I mean, I just don't want to mislead that we can't do it, because I don't think that just because if we push it out into next year, you know, the pool will be larger. There's no doubt about it, because we have, you know, more folks to pick from. But I don't know whether the quality is going to be any different. You know, I mean, it's tough finding the quality no matter when we do these jobs anymore.
Also, my thought process is this, is to your point, contracts have to be signed April? Ms. Kent, is that a standard for all districts?
If you're non-renewing by April 15th, but our contracts,
So, right, so, and that's what I'm getting to right there, of that if we did advertise it as a permanent superintendent now, that that puts it out there to, within the state of Arizona, the pool of anyone who's having thoughts of maybe not wanting to renew, that there's an opportunity out there.
Well, that's true. And, you know,
Just another, yeah.
no, I mean, it's true. And I mean, we have a sort of a Southwest national network that I think is going to help you too. I know people always think, well, then we got to have somebody that knows something. When I'm doing a job in Iowa or Texas, got to have somebody who knows Texas law. Well, Texas is not that special. I hate to tell them that, you know, but you know they can. A good leadership person can work in any state.
Right, I agree.
Any state.
100%.
You know, if they have leadership skills and people skills and know how to communicate, they can get the job done. It's trying to get the very best folks that'll make the impact on all kids is where I'm coming from.
Mr. President, if I can cut in here.
Please go.
I heard you say there were two things you needed the board to act upon tonight. One was to provide the funds needed to advertise, and the other one is to set the base salary, the annual base salary. The other question I have, and maybe this is for legal, can we should be able to modify our motion to include a permanent and an interim in that motion? Would that resolve the issue with using them for both?
Yeah, I mean, we're pretty flexible on that. The answer is, we gave a proposal on doing the permanent and the.
Excuse me, that's where I was going. I was going the one before the other, but you being both of them, because you would have you'd see everybody, you'd be able to do it. So my question is, if we want to throw that forward and bring them in to be able to do both, one before the other, is there a motion we can do to resolve that tonight?
Can you come to the mic, please? And members, I would just caution us that tonight's agenda item is specifically relating to the interim superintendent search process.
My suggestion would be, since it sounds like you're going to want to come back anyway by March 23rd, because that's the soonest it sounds like the profile will be actually decided, that we schedule another board meeting so we can look at the proposals that came in. We can look again at the way the contract is worded, and we can properly agendize it, I think, to be a little more, again, transparent about the possibility of going from an interim superintendent search only to a superintendent search. So it sounds like that can all be accomplished very quickly by no later than the 23rd, unless you want to have a special board meeting to address that sooner.
Yeah, and just to be clear, my intent here was to move forward with the interim and to make sure that they were following up with the permanent at the same time, because as I heard the proposal and what they were stating made a lot of sense to me. I don't know that we want to readdress this 6 months down the road. Thank you.
Members, my only concern that we've heard is the pool is small now because of the timing of this. So in the past, I've heard many times in this district, we hired the best in the pool. The best in the pool may not be very good. So I caution us, due to the timing that we were placed into this, that we look at the interim with a strong emphasis, probably as we build our profile, that this could become something new. So we're probably looking for perhaps a non-retired superintendent, or somebody who is retired and wants to get back into the system. We've seen superintendents do that, but we're looking for that. I'm just fearful at this point in the game. Secondly, I think it's really tough to bring in a permanent superintendent that would start sometime close to the first day of school if we do a true permanent search. And they have no ramp-up time with their staff or have anything in place. So all of a sudden, they're just stuck into the baseball game, bottom of the ninth, bases loaded, 2 outs, and they've got to make a play. So that's my caution. I've heard over and over the quality of the pool may be no different in a year. However, it probably will be larger, so I think our chances, we may get more fish out of that net, so to speak, if we cast a large net.
Yeah, I mean, if you have a little larger pool, I mean, the odds are that you might, have more folks to choose from. Again, it doesn't mean that there isn't somebody who's really a hot shot that's available right now, but it's always a tough call for a board in this position, to make which way you're going to go. But the pools are going to be small, no matter which pick that you do. These jobs are tough. People are not taking these jobs. They're quitting, they're retiring. They just, being a superintendent is not the best job in the country today.
I would just add to the conversation in relationship to. Yeah, no problem, excuse me. In relationship to the interim versus the permanent versus the timing and all of that, this is probably a comment more for staff, but I think the procurement side of all of this is important, and I don't know how it was procured, if it was procured as an interim or a combination, or whether or not that could be done legally and in alignment with procurement. But certainly as a board, you're going to want to know that before you proceed in a different way. I don't know it. I haven't seen it. It may be perfectly fine the way it is written, but I don't know that. But it's certainly a question I think that you need to feel comfortable with.
So, I guess, is it appropriate to take a motion and to approve the two items that we discussed? It's not? Yes, of course.
Yeah, I think the recommendation would be to basically bring those two items back at the next board agenda with the profile. You're not going to advertise it, I take it, before you have the profile, correct? Right. Okay, and you're not going to advertise it, you're not going to therefore need the salary until we do that. And so it sounds like there may be some further consideration regarding the direction they want to go. So if it can work for you, I think the better course of action will be to wait until the next board meeting in order to make any motions so that the board actually knows what direction it plans to go, and then can consider all of these together. I'm sorry?
Should be able to be covered in 6.6.
Well, in 6.6,
Because it says, or other actions relating to interim superintendent search.
yeah, and I think we were looking, was it 6.6? Okay, yes, there could be a motion certainly to direct the administration to review the contract, to look at the procurement piece, to maybe even bring back recommendation regarding some collateral material that you might want to use, for the search, and basically to work collaboratively with the consulting firm to bring back recommendations to the board and options to the board.
Yeah, I think the profile piece is something you're going to have to decide. I mean, we can move this meetings back a little bit, but quite frankly, whether I'm doing a permanent or part-time, or not permanent, or the interim person, though, it would help us if we could advertise and get out there, but we're okay. When's your next board meeting?
Next regular one is
What
27th.
day are we talking about?
The 27th of March.
Another 10 days.
Or we could do a special meeting.
So, again, I believe that we can add the advertising amounts to 6.6, and we're going to be fine. It's related.
I agree with 6.6. I think we can.
If we could do that, and because in all fairness, whether we're doing, if we're doing the interim or whatever, that we've got to get out there.
Right.
And we got to start moving. And every day in this business counts. So if we can get the advertisement done, and I'm not, the salary is a pretty reasonable salary considering where you're at now anyway. So it's not like we're piling on a bunch of money there. You're already paying 177, and the job is the job next year, no matter who, whether it's a permanent or interim. So if you could give us that 180, then that helps, and we can start moving.
Okay, members, any other questions for 6.5, or we can move to 6.6? Hearing no additional discussion on 6.5, we'll move to 6.6, which is possible action to administration and/or legal counsel or other actions relating to interim superintendent search process.
Mr. President, I move to direct the administration to execute the agreement with GR Recruiting on behalf of the board and collaborate as needed with GR Recruiting and/or the district's legal counsel to facilitate GR Recruiting's work to recruit, advertise for a permanent superintendent for the district, and to include a posted salary of $180,000 with it to be negotiated at the time of signing.
Second.
Can you come to the microphone?
I did say permanent.
So okay, our motion is on the agenda is for interim. If we were to do permanent, we would be out of our agenda.
I thought we discussed that and we could.
We did.
Actually, I think it would be more prudent to, if you want to table the motion to move forward with the interim, to bring it back for a future agenda item, again, to take a look at the request for the proposals that were submitted, and to agendize it differently. That was what I shared a few minutes ago. That would be my recommendation.
Okay, any further discussion?
Yep, so I appreciate council recommendation. This is how boards work. We talk about things in public, there's a motion, there's a second on the floor. If the board wants to move forward with that, then the board will. If the board doesn't want to move forward and goes with another direction, then so be it. All about compromise and talking it out here in public.
Okay, any more discussion? When I call your name, please specify your vote. The motion is, can you please read the motion back so we have it clear?
I just need a little clarification. The end, I got work, let's see.
I can reread.
Okay, I move to direct the administration to execute the agreement with GR Recruiting on behalf of the board and collaborate as needed with GR Recruiting and/or the district's legal counsel to facilitate GR Recruiting's work to recruit a permanent superintendent for the district with the cost of advertising and salary of $180,000. Is that correct? Got it.
Board Member Bixler, does that clarify, does that confirm your motion? Okay. All right, when I call your name, please specify your vote. Board Member Parks?
No.
Board Member Aguirre?
Yes.
Board Member Bixler?
Aye.
Board Member Kenyon?
No.
I'm also no. We will show that that failed. 3 votes no, 2 votes yes.
Mr. President, I move to direct the administration to execute the agreement with GR Recruiting on behalf of the board and collaborate as needed with GR Recruiting and/or the district's legal counsel to facilitate GR Recruiting's work to recruit an interim superintendent for the district, including up to $900 for advertising and stating the salary range of $180,000.
I'll second.
Okay, can you read that motion back, please, Ms. Rodriguez, so we have it correct for the record?
I move to direct the administration to execute the agreement with GR Recruiting on behalf of the board and collaborate as needed with GR Recruiting and/or the district's legal counsel to facilitate GR Recruiting's work to recruit an interim superintendent for the district with up to $900 cost of advertising and salary of $180,000
Yes.
So base salary?
base salary.
Okay. Mr. Kenyon, is that your motion?
Yes.
Okay, we have a second. For that, when I call your name, please specify your vote.
Can we talk about this one?
You can,
Okay.
feel free.
So what I'd like to point out is I'd like to point out the timeline that GNR has laid out to us, that what we're looking at is having an interim for one full school year. We have district administration who is waiting on a permanent replacement to see where they're gonna go. We have teachers doing the same thing. We have a bond that is extremely important, that gets going immediately. Not to mention the direction of the district. We just heard about a presentation of math with our children that, I hate to say this, but what does the quality of the education look like for the children with an interim superintendent? And not having a permanent superintendent hitting the ground running. As it was presented also, that the pool may be larger, but that does not mean that the quality is better. And I appreciate you pointing that out.
Members, I personally feel that we're in good hands with Ms. Camp heading up the education services. I think any superintendent that would get involved with trying to deter that would not be somebody that we would select. I'm more than willing to bring this back up for discussion at a special meeting, but for tonight, our agenda is the interim, and that's what we need to get moving forward with first and foremost. I do not disagree that we need to look for a permanent, but I do feel we need to have the time to do that properly and not rush it. I know in the past it happened. That's because there was a local candidate. That may not be the case this time, and I think we're putting way too much into our basket and locking us in by doing this all at one time. So
We actually had 3 out-of-state candidates last time.
I understand, but the one chosen was in-state, and so,
It was because that candidate was the best choice.
well, this time, we may not have the time, and I think I'm more than willing to have a special session to discuss this more, but for tonight, I think we need to move forward with the interim right away.
And like
I see the shaking of our experts' heads,
Like
so.
they presented also, though, they could run them simultaneously. We could be looking for a permanent, and if they come to us and they say, hey, the pool's not there, then we'll fall right back onto the interim. That was stated. And I trust that they'll be honest with us if that were to be the case.
Okay, members, we have a motion and a second. When I call your name, please specify your vote. Board Member Parks?
Aye.
Board Member Aguirre?
No.
Board Member Bixler?
I think it's real important we get a superintendent in, somebody take the load. Aye.
Board Member Kenyon?
Aye.
I'm also an aye. We will show that I approve 4 votes to 1. And again, I'll just explain my vote. If the board desires, and I certainly would support it, that we need to come back into session quickly and come up with a plan for the permanent choice. If we can modify this, so be it. But we need to do a little more digging and a lot more study before we make such a locking and binding decision in tonight's meeting.
And if I could also, for the reasons that I stated before, that is why my vote was no. I too agree that we need a superintendent, but I also agree that our staff and the people who work for us they need to know who they're going to be working for as soon as possible and not a year from now.
Mr. President, I have one other request that doesn't take board action.
Okay.
I just need to know who the in-house contact will be and who the board contact will be.
You? Yeah. I think Natasha and myself will probably be the two.
So Natasha, you'll be the in-house, and Mr. President, you'll be the
Yes.
board representative. Because right away, we'd like to have, I'll need the cell numbers of the board members. We'd like to get you interviewed this week, so Natasha, I might ask you to help coordinate and give me times that Dr. Senatellarelli and I will be calling and doing that, so. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No matter which way you go, we'll do
That's why we want you with us.
Members, item 6.7 is next on our agenda. It's a discussion consideration to approve increased amount for certified teacher professional growth salary increases.
Mr. President, members of the governing board, Liberty Elementary School District offers the annual opportunity for professional growth salary advancement to certified teachers for college and university courses. Professional growth is given for credit hours in increments of 15. Certified teachers receive $500 for each lateral step, and the categories currently honored for those salary advancements are the following: bachelor's plus 15, bachelor's plus 30, master's plus 15, master's plus 30, and master's plus 45. Credit is only given for graduate level courses in education. Courses that are required for certification, like SEI, are not eligible for salary advancement credit. Courses that have been paid for by the school district, either directly or via tuition reimbursement, are also not eligible for salary advancement credit. The board approved 23-24 certified starting salary guide reflects an average of 525 increase per lateral step. Current certified step will be receiving less per lateral step than the new higher certified step if the $500 is not increased to at least $525. We're looking for approval tonight to increase the amount from $500 to $525 per lateral step for certified teacher professional growth increases. And our HR staff is here for any questions.
Any questions, members? All right, we'll take a motion.
Mr. President, I move that we approve the increased amount, the teacher compensation for professional growth increase amount from $500 to $525 per lateral step for certified teacher.
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second to approve the increased amount from $500 to $525 per lateral step for certified teacher professional growth increases. That, when I call your name, please specify your vote. Is there any discussion first?
I would just like to point out, I love when I see teachers going out and bettering themselves, even, future, looking out in their horizon and seeing who they could become and different opportunities that are presented to them. I think this is wonderful, and I didn't realize that these weren't on an even level, so it's good to even them up.
Yeah, I'd like to just add something too. I find it's increasingly harder for teachers to go to school in their off time because you just don't have the off time. So I really appreciate the effort being made by the staff to gain those skills and abilities. So thank you for doing that, and boy, I hope you keep doing it because it really does make a difference in our classrooms.
Hearing no further discussion, I'll call for your vote. Board Member Parks.
Aye.
Board Member Aguirre.
Yes.
Board Member Bixler.
Aye.
Board Member Kenyon.
Aye.
I'm also an aye. We'll show that approved. 5 yes, 0 no's. Next on our agenda is item 7.1, board comments or agenda topic requests.
I was just looking at the upcoming agenda topics, and I was wondering where Mr. Kenyon's bathroom policy And also my agenda topic at the last meeting, where does that fall at? Because I didn't see either one of them in there.
Right, those have not been agendized yet. Staff has asked us to slow our agenda a little bit down while they're understaffed, so we will get to those here in the next coming weeks.
Okay.
I have one too.
Yeah,
We also have some other requests from Mr. Parks earlier on that we omitted. His has been in queue for a long time on policies, but we had to slow some things down to let staff stay up and be able to properly staff these meetings.
Now, do we need a special meeting for the 23rd for the GR recruiting for their needs?
I think we're scheduled. Are we scheduled that day?
Our next regular meeting is the 27th.
We're still on 7.1, I think.
Yes.
Because I just wanted to point out that the topic that I brought up, I don't believe administration has to prepare for it.
Okay, it requires staff and legal to prepare. We will get them agended, rest assured. Mr. Bixler, you had a question on doing a special meeting on the 23rd.
Right, my understanding from what GR recruiting was saying was that they needed us to take action by on the 23rd.
Yes, so that is what their timeline shows. Is everybody available that day?
Could we do Monday, the 20th? Just do it next Monday?
I don't know why they chose the 23rd.
It just has to be done by then, I believe.
No, we're agenda topics. Yeah. So are you proposing the 20th?
It's the next Monday. It's kind of.
Okay, so I think staff and legal can check with them and see if the 20th works, and if it does, then we can schedule that meeting. I believe that would fall under our motion to move this forward earlier. Anything else? Okay, hearing none, we'll move for item 9.1, the adjournment of the meeting.
Make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second to adjourn the meeting. Call your name, please specify your vote. Board Member Parks.
Aye.
Board Member Aguirre.
Yes.
Board Member Bixler.
Aye.
Board Member Kenyon.
Aye.
I'm also an aye. We'll show that approved 5-0. Meeting is adjourned.